Well, I think you get into this in your next slide, right? Talking about how we can use life cycle finance, but for advisors and for the rest of the industry, how do you see this all playing out?
Well, I do think that one has to, rest on the notion that there's a science here, that there is an underlying science. It's not all baloney. And that there are people who want to be faithful to the science, okay? So here's what I think. This is my optimistic forecast for the future. Life cycle investing will be about choosing among features of products designed for consumers by financial engineers. But it should be said, as a general rule, that when a product is easy for the consumer to use, it's harder for the engineers to design and maintain. It's not always the case, but it certainly, I believe, is the case with financial products. And it's easy to build in complexity that doesn't really help the consumer. So regulators have to be taught how to think about this stuff. I'm not, we have a long way to go in those terms. And I could give you examples of arguments that we've had with the regulators, but such is life, okay? There will be progress, I think. I think the financial crisis was caused by lousy regulation and consumers not understanding what they were doing, taking out mortgages. Lots of ignorance played a big part in that financial crisis, in my view. So I'm being optimistic here. Technological progress will make these products affordable for middle-class consumers, not just the wealthy. So a well-designed product, given the technology, technological advance, a lot of it is going to depend on fintech, financial technology, that drives costs down. Not always, but in most cases. So there'll be some combination of financial technology in the mix of financial advice. It will not replace the financial advisor, that's for sure. And, I like to give the example of financial engines. The very first fintech company in the area of life cycle or retirement advice, it was designed to be a do-it-yourself kind of robo-advisory that was offered by firms to their employees who were making decisions on their retirement plan. And today, 30 or some odd years later, or 25 years later, you go to financial engines, they still have the technology, but the first thing it says on the screen is, call this number for assistance, okay? They don't want you to try on your own. They don't think you're likely to do it, but if you do, you'll probably give up. So that right off they say, call an advisor.
So we have about 5 minutes left.
Right.
I want to make sure, because this is really what you're known for, is the safety first portfolio. So if we could skip ahead 2 slides to, let's just have Professor Bodie walk us through what a safety first portfolio, how you might calculate and think about that.
Yeah, this is
vis-a-vis a retirement goal.
This is the theme of my book, which was supposed to be a mass market, bestseller.
Still working on it.
Still working on it, right. Worry-free investing. You start out, let's say the goal is retirement. What are you looking for? You're looking for an inflation-protected income for life that allows you to sustain your customary standard of living in the latter part of your working life, okay? And to cover the gap between your desired income level and your Social Security benefits. Okay, that's a reasonable statement
makes sense.
of a goal. Now, what are the steps in implementation of this approach? Well, first of all, compute how much you'd have to save, the required contribution rate, if you took minimal risk. You invest in TIPS with matched maturity. It requires a certain savings rate. And let me assure you, with the real rate of return being less than 1% on a pre-tax basis, you're going to have to save a lot. It's not going to be a happy picture, particularly compared to the advice that people have been getting when they assume 5 or 6 or 8% rates of return. So you're going to have to save a lot. Now, if you decide, this is the term structure of real interest rates, okay, just the other day, and you see they're all less than 1%. And this is what it looks like as a picture. This is a maturity of 5 years, 30 years. You can see it's flat. Expected inflation is the difference between the nominal and the real Treasury rate, about 2% per year, all the way out to 30 years.
2% break-even inflation, give or take.
Right.
70, 80, 90 basis points of real return.
How is this going to change in the future? We don't know.
Right. This is today's numbers.
I don't expect the real yield curve to be much different in years to come. I actually think it's close to zero. It's between 0 and 1%, and it's going to stay there. How do I know this? I don't. But if you look back, except for the period when TIPS first came out and the market was not used to them, and the yield was 3%, real terms, 3.5%, that disappeared within a matter of a few years, and I don't think it's going to come back. So we better get used to this as the safe rate of return. Now, there may be a risk premium on equities of 4 or 5%, but that's a premium for taking risk. So here's my question. If you are going to take risk, and let me go back, we found the contribution rate, the amount of savings on a safety first solution. How much risk are you willing to take? Well, let me just ask this question. Do you need to save more or less if you're going to take risk? Not clear. You can't bank on earning the risk premium. It might go the other way. So it's not clear that you can save less. We all do save less by assuming 4 or 6%. So why? Because if you tell people how much they actually have to save in a no-risk world, they might not want to save at all. They might get discouraged. Okay, so they take risk, but don't tell them that there isn't any risk, because it could go against them. And you're going to have to adjust the portfolio as you go along and change your goals. If things do, let's say you're flying from here to Boston, you hit a rainstorm, a windstorm, whatever, you're going to have to adjust. And start withdrawing income at the target date. Okay, that's the steps in the process.
And I think that might be all that we have time for today. It's just so exciting to have you here. Thank you so much on behalf of all of us.
My pleasure,
Professor Bodie.
And thank you to all those people who asked questions.
Yeah, well, I think we covered most of it. Definitely, if you download the slides or you want additional information, go to zvbodie.com.